You're stretched out on a bed of grass at the mouth of a cave, somewhere in what's now South Africa, 200,000 years ago. One small fire is burning behind you. Everything past its light is just sound. A cough that isn't human. Grass moving in a wind that isn't blowing. You have no lock. No wall, no weapon within reach that could stop what's out there if it decides to come closer. Right now, you have all three. A locked door, walls, maybe a phone within reach that could summon help in minutes. You've never had to fall asleep wondering if you'd wake up. So here's the real question. How did ancient humans actually manage to close their eyes and sleep? Genuinely, deeply sleep, in a world with no locks at all. Start with where they actually slept. In 2020, archaeologist Lynn Wadley and her team at the University of the Witwatersrand published findings from Border Cave in South Africa, a rock shelter people had used, on and off, for over 200,000 years. Buried in the sediment, they found something nobody expected to survive: that long, fossilized grass, pressed flat, laid out in a bed roughly a foot thick. It wasn't just grass thrown on the floor. It was laid over a bottom layer of ash. Wadley's team argued that was deliberate. Ash is a natural insect repellent, and grass bedding without it would fill with fleas and ticks within days. When a bed got too dirty or too infested, they burned it. Then they laid down a fresh one, right on top of the old ash. 200,000 years before pillows, before mattresses, before bug spray, someone already understood. Comfort and survival were the same problem, and you solved them together. Or you didn't sleep. So the bed was solved. What about everything else in the dark? Everyone pictures early humans just collapsing wherever they stood, too exhausted to care about hygiene. The evidence says the opposite. They had a maintenance routine for their sleeping area older than agriculture, older than pottery, older than the wheel by a wide margin. But a clean bed doesn't stop a predator. Fire does most of that work, and it's older than almost anyone assumes. In 2012, archaeologist Francesco Berna, then at Boston University, published evidence from Wonderwork Cave, also in South Africa, showing controlled fire use dating back roughly 1 million years. His team found burned bone and ash more than 30 meters inside the cave, far past where a wildfire could ever reach on its own. That distance is the whole argument. Wind-blown ash settles near a cave entrance. This was buried deep in the dark, which means somebody carried the fire in and kept it burning. On purpose, night after night, for 1 million years running. A fire that size, call it a campfire, nothing dramatic, throws heat for maybe 10 feet and light for barely 20. It's not a fortress. Large predators, the ones that hunted at night, generally avoided it anyway. That flickering ring of light became the actual property line between safe and not safe, redrawn every single evening. Everyone pictures that fire as mostly about staying warm. Warmth was a bonus. The bigger job was visibility. A fire turns you from prey with your back exposed into prey that can actually see what's coming, and for most large nocturnal predators, that's often enough to make you not worth the risk. So the space was safe. That still leaves the sleep itself. And this is where a 2015 study kind of wrecks the picture most people have in their head. Anthropologist Gandhi Yetish, working with UCLA sleep researcher Jerome Siegel, tracked 94 people across 3 hunter-gatherer and forager-farmer groups: the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, the Tsimane of Bolivia, using wrist monitors that logged over 1,000 nights of real sleep data. The result: these groups averaged about 6 hours and 25 minutes of sleep a night. That's less than the 8 hours most sleep apps guilt you over, and barely different from what plenty of stressed-out office workers get today. They also didn't go to bed at dark. On average, people fell asleep roughly 3.5 hours after sunset, staying up to talk, tend the fire, or work by firelight, and woke close to an hour before sunrise. Nobody napped to make up the difference. Either everyone assumes hunter-gatherers, without electricity or screens, must have slept way more than we do. The data says the opposite. Modern people in industrialized countries sleep about the same, or occasionally even more. So if it wasn't extra sleep keeping them alive, what was actually doing the work while everyone's eyes were closed? This is where it gets clever. In 2017, biological anthropologist David Sampson, then studying the Hadza directly in Tanzania, published research on what's called the Sentinel Hypothesis in the Journal of Human Evolution. He and his team tracked when individuals within Hadza sleeping groups were awake versus asleep, minute by minute, across full nights. Synchronized sleep, everyone unconscious at once, turned out to be almost non-existent. Sampson's data showed that across the entire window between when the first person fell asleep and the last person woke up, at least one adult was awake and alert during 8% of that time. Nobody assigned a night watch. There was no schedule, no shift, no designated guard. Because people's sleep timing naturally staggers, some drift off early, some stay up late, some wake to nurse a baby or feed the fire. The group produced round-the-clock vigilance completely by accident, just by sleeping the way humans naturally sleep in a group. So put all four pieces next to each other, and the obvious answer, that ancient humans just toughened up, or slept less because they had to, turns out to be the wrong shape entirely. Nobody individually solved the problem of an unsafe night. A single person, alone with one fire, was still just meat waiting for the right predator to get hungry enough. What actually worked was the arrangement. Clean bedding that kept sickness off the group, a fire that made you visible instead of blind, and a cluster of staggered, imperfect sleepers who, without planning it, guaranteed that someone was always half awake. Safety wasn't a wall. It was a rotation nobody had to be told to run. Picture that cave again. Grass bed under you, small fire in front of you, the dark just past its light, doing whatever the dark does. You're not actually alone out there, even though it feels that way. Somewhere close, in the same firelight, at least one person is still awake, watching without meaning to, simply because their body decided to fall asleep 3 hours later than yours. Now come back to your bed, your locked door, your walls. You built all of that specifically so you'd never need another person awake beside you again. It works. You do sleep. But the thing that actually let humans close their eyes safely for 200,000 years wasn't the wall. It was never the wall. It was always whoever was still awake next to you.